Welcome to the Beast in Ice boss guide. This goes over where to find the Beast in Ice, how to farm the materials to fight him, what you should do when you're battling him, and how to avoid his most dangerous abilities, plus what epic loot awaits you should you manage to defeat him. Spoiler alert, you're probably going to manage to defeat him, especially if you're above level 85. I'll be releasing guides for all 5 of the endgame bosses in Diablo 4, so if that's of interest to you, then do be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, and stay tuned for more coming soon. So first up, let's start with the basics of where do you find the Beast in Ice. You do battle with him by entering the Glacial Fissure, which is a tier 31 nightmare dungeon. Unlike other nightmare dungeon sigils, it doesn't drop randomly out in the world. Instead, you need to complete other nightmare dungeons to collect distilled fear, and once you have enough, go to the occultist and craft a Glacial Fissure Nightmare Sigil dungeon. Activate it, and you should be prompted to teleport immediately to the Glacial Fissure, just like with any other nightmare dungeon. But if you happen to escape out or otherwise close the window, don't worry, just look to the southwest of Kjolvashad, and you'll be able to find it on your map without too much issue. Before you go, maybe stop by the Alchemist and grab yourself a potent elixir of cold resistance, because the Beast in Ice does a lot of cold damage. Now, once you reach the Glacial Fissure and zone in, you may want to take some time to clear all the trash before the boss. Though this is completely optional, if a Nightmare 31 happens to give reasonable loot for you, then you might as well kill stuff along the way. The boss fight is divided into 3 phases, with intermissions at 66 and 33% health. The boss gains some new abilities, or empowers his existing ones as his health drops. So initially in phase 1, the beast will use several attacks. First up, he'll slash at you with his melee weapon. When he does, this releases ice crystals that travel a short distance before shattering, exploding into multiple smaller ice shards. The melee slashes and the ice crystals are relatively easy to avoid. However, because each slash releases multiple crystals and each crystal releases multiple smaller shards, the shards are significantly harder to completely avoid. Luckily, getting hit by 1 or 2 isn't all that dangerous, especially if your cold resistance is capped. The Beast in Ice will also occasionally let out an icy breath that releases a lot of ice crystals. These shatter just like the ones from his attacks, and can be quite dangerous if you're near the area of impact, as they release a lot of shards. But if you're standing behind him or otherwise away, it's pretty darn easy to avoid this move as well. After the beast takes a little bit of damage, he'll gain 2 new abilities in phase 1. First, where he roars and repeatedly slams his sword into the ground. You may recognize this attack from other similar demons out in the world. Not only do you have to avoid the sword by moving to the side or behind him, but he'll generate multiple pools on the ground, which also need to be avoided. Luckily, this is very easily telegraphed, so shouldn't be too challenging. And last up, he'll do an occasional leap attack. This is by far the hardest to avoid, because not only does he deal damage in a wide area, but again, he releases ice crystals which shatter, releasing a lot of small shards, and because the ring of shards expands outwards, it can be incredibly difficult to avoid damage from this. However, you can also just pop a defensive skill and stand directly into the slam and be totally fine, assuming you're of a decent level and have quite a bit of health or cold resistance. Just be sure to pop a potion to top yourself off afterwards. Personally, I found that it is often easier to just stand in the attack and tank it with a defensive than it is to try to avoid it. And if you're playing a class like Sorceress or Necromancer that have complete damage immunities, this is the perfect time to stand still, pop your immunity, and just laugh at the boss as he pathetically attempts to damage you and fails miserably. When you lower the Beast in Ice to 66% health, he begins his intermission phase. During the intermission, there's several smaller enemies, and in particular, watch out for the ones that explode. Kill them, but position yourself carefully so you aren't hit by the strafing attacks that he executes during this phase. These strafing attacks are indicated by the lines on the ground where he summons waves of ice that sweep across the arena. If these hit you, you'll be knocked into the storm at the outer edges and take significant damage. So, try to stay near the center of the room. When the lines appear, they telegraph the attack, look through the safe zone, and stand in it while attacking the adds. If you don't make it, try to pop a source of unstoppable so you're not frozen and knocked into the storm. After the transition, the Beast in Ice enters into phase 2, where he gains a dangerous new attack. He'll plant his sword into the ground and begin to channel, causing a series of 4 icy explosions targeted at your location. These explosions release 5 icy waves in a pentagonal formation. To avoid this, try moving in an arc around the boss. and if you see one of the lines projected under your character, adjust and move out of the effect. Also, if you have a source of unstoppable, keep it ready, because a single attack from this ability is unlikely to kill you. But it is highly likely to freeze you, and if you're frozen, you're going to tank the rest, which is quite dangerous. During Phase 2, the Beast in Ice will also use all of his abilities from Phase 1. Then, at 33% health, the second intermission begins. It's just like the first: focus on dodging, kill the ads as you can, you'll be good to go. During Phase 3, he does not gain any new abilities. However, he does empower the channeled ability from Phase 2, where the final explosion releases a second spread of 5 icy waves for 10 total. Because they explode from the midpoint, the center of the safe zone in the default pattern, you'll want to dodge a little bit after you avoid the final wave of the attack. But aside of that, there's also one other interesting thing for Phase 3, which is the blizzard that closes off the edge of the room is perpetually active, and the boss will occasionally do strafing runs. So positioning and careful movement is far more important in this phase, and sometimes it just helps to pop a defensive or give yourself unstoppable and tank an ability. Now, just as an example, here's me going through the fight really quickly. You'll notice that I'm not particularly worried about moving out of any of his skills because I do have a cold resistance potion on, but occasionally I will dodge around just a little bit to not get hit by multiple things. I'm able to find plenty of opportunities to burst him down. During the intermissions, I can't really damage the boss, so I don't worry about it too much. Instead, I just focus on dealing with the ads and avoiding getting knocked into the storm. After the intermissions, when the boss becomes active again, I'll go back to beating on it and kill it in short order. Each of the endgame bosses in Diablo 4 have a list of unique items that are likely to drop. For best results, you'll probably want to kill the Beast in Ice a couple times, especially if you're going after a specific item, but in general, here's what you can expect. And if you want to look back at this list later, I'll link to a cheat sheet over from Maxwell GG down in the description below. In addition to the unique items, you can get a lot of high item power, rare, and legendary gear, much of which will be over item power 900, and you can get the special Skull Torch and Fell Steed Mount Trophy cosmetics. And so that's about it for where to find and how to fight the Beast in Ice. Remember, you can find the handy cheat sheet for loot linked down below, along with a complete written boss guide over at Maxwell GG. Both of those will be down in the description. And if you're looking for more content, say how to do the Season of Blood, well, I have a guide to that I'll link up in the card and down in the description below. But for now, I'm curious, have you fought any of the bosses in Diablo 4? If so, what was your experience? Did you find the fight easy, difficult, rewarding? Did you get an uber unique from Duriel yet? Let me know all of that down in the comments. And of course, before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. Link to support is also down below. Hope you learned something, and remember, if you found this guide useful, link it to a friend next time they're wondering how to kill the Beast in Ice.